Hi, in this video I'm going to show you how to use Fusion 360 to make a simple pontoon, like twin hull boat like you can see on the screen at the moment. So I'll just give you a sort of a quick look at what that will look like when we finish. That's sort of the thing that we're aiming for in this video. So I'm just going to create a new design, and you can see by default with Fusion 360 we are in sort of like what we would call sort of a 3D view where I'm looking at the X, Y, and Z axis all in one screen or one aspect. Over on the right hand side, we have what we call the orientation cube, okay, and that allows you to reorientate Fusion 360 or the space that you're looking at to make it easier to design something. So what I'm going to do is using the orientation cube, I'm just going to click on the face that says front, and then that will take me to this view. So I've got my Z axis, which is my up and down, okay, and then I've got my X axis there. Okay, so whenever we're creating something using Fusion 360, we sort of start off with a two-dimensional shape, and then we can turn it into a three-dimensional shape. So I'm just going to start as I do with any new component that we want to build and then print, is we create a sketch. So over on the left-hand side, I've got the Create Sketch button I can click on, and then I need to choose the space or the space that I'm going to be working on this two-dimensional object within. So I'm going to click on the square that sort of is sort of like by default highlighted there. And now I'm telling Fusion 360 that this is the flat surface that I want to work on for my two-dimensional shape. Okay, up here we have a range of tools that you can utilize to help build your boat or build whatever it is that you're trying to build. And what we're going to start off with is we're going to start off with a rectangle. Okay, and I'm going to create my rectangle. I want my rectangle to be about 100 mils wide. That's the widest that we can make our boats for this project. Okay, and I'm going to make it like 20 mils thick. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that space there. Now you can see up the top and on the side there, I've got a space that I can put in my length and width. I can just type into those boxes there, or I can just sort of drag it out and make it snap to the grid lines, and then I'll get a pretty good dimension. So I'm just going to click there, and then I've got my rectangle there, which is going to sort of form the base, or I guess the top of the boat. We're just going to print it. I'm designing it this way so that when I print it, the boat will sort of be face down, which makes it easier to print. It will mean that it needs less support to finish the print. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some circles to create like the twin hull component of the pontoon boat. I'm going to click on the circle there, and I'm going to go 20 mils in because I want my the hull. I want those the hull components. I want them to be 40 mils in diameter. Okay, so I've chosen that. I've specifically chosen that measurement because I want like just half of the circle to be showing when I finish the product. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that again, create another one over on the right hand side, and see there again 40 mils. Okay, and I press just click, and now I have my two-dimensional version of what I'm trying to build. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I've sort of finished my sketch for now. I'm going to click on the option to finish sketch. There are a range of other tools that you can use to create different designs. I'm just like showing you, I guess, the really bare bones basics of building a boat. But there's like curved lines and stuff that you can use to help create your product. Also straight lines and other things that are available to you as well, which you can kind of explore yourself. And then what I'm going to do though is I'm just going to finish the sketch. So I'm sort of telling Fusion right now, I've sort of finished the two-dimensional component of what I want to build. Now it still looks two-dimensional at the moment. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go over to my orientation cube up in the top right-hand corner again. And if I click on that home button, it'll take us to the original view where we're sort of looking at the object in 3 dimensions. Now, I'm going to just scroll out a little bit, just to give myself a little bit of space. Down the bottom here, you've got a range of tools that you can use. If you're using a mouse, it's actually really, really easy to use Fusion 360. I'm just using the touchpad on my computer at the moment, so it makes it a little bit tricky to pan and to zoom in and so zooming in and out is really easy, but the panning is really difficult. And then there's also the orbit option as well, which is kind of like manipulating the orientation cube, but that will work there as well. But now what I want to do, because I've selected one of those functions down the bottom there, I just click escape, and then that takes me back to having a cursor again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight that whole object that I've created, and then I'm going to use this option called extrude. Now, extrude just turns a 2-dimensional shape into a 3-dimensional shape, so it gives it depth. So I'm going to click on that, and then you can see here I've got an arrow, and I can drag my arrow out, and I can just drag that out if I like, or I can just type in there, I want to make that 150 mil, and then I click OK. So now I've got I'm just going to zoom out a little. Now I've got a pontoon boat that meets the criteria in terms of length and width of the object. You can see there all my lines are like pretty rough lines in terms of like they're square, they're all 90-degree angles. So in terms of aquadynamics, probably not what we want. So what we can do, there's some tools that we can use to make it like a little bit more aquadynamic, or a little bit, yeah, I guess like a bit rounder than it is at the moment. So I'm just going to click on the 2 edges. So I've just clicked on that edge that I was highlighting just before, so the edge of like one of the hulls. Okay, and then I'm just going to control and click the other edge of the other hull. Okay, so what I have ended up with, I've got both of those edges highlighted. And then what I'm going to use this modify section, and I can do either what we call a fillet, which gives us a nice sort of round edge, or I can use chamfer, which will give us sort of like a 45-degree angle edge. So I'm just going to choose fillet for the basis of this. Okay, and I use that arrow, and then you can see there I've created something that's a little bit more aquadynamic. So it's rounded those edges off, made it a little bit softer, I guess, and then I can just click OK, and that is done. Now, importantly, over on the left-hand side at the bottom of the screen, we have what we call the timeline. Now, I might change my mind. I might say, okay, hang on, like I'm not really wrapped with the fillet. So I can just go back a step, my extrude step. If I click on that, if I drag that little cursor back to that point, you can see I go back to where I was before I did the fillet. Okay, I can then go back again and reissue that fillet. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back that step, and I'm going to show you what a chamfer does. Okay, so I'm going to click on that hull edge again, and I'm going to control and click on the other hull edge. And then instead of fillet, I'm going to use the chamfer option. Okay, very similar, but it gives it, I guess, like, yeah, you've sort of got more like 45-degree angles. And that might be a bit more desirable in terms of aquadynamics. And then I can just click OK, and I've got a pretty decent looking pontoon boat. Okay, as I sort of mentioned before, I've sort of designed it so that that will be the print bed basically when I export it later on. Okay, and then as it prints, it sort of works its way up to what we would eventually make as the bottom of the boat. So from there, you can then use the pontoon boat you could build a sail on it, you could put a motor on it, you can do a whole range of things with a simple design like this. So if you're not sure, this is a really great place to start, because you can start to, this could be a prototype, and you can start to experiment with different forms of propulsion. Yeah, so that's how to build a basic pontoon boat. Now, the next step is to be able to print this item. Now, to print it, you need to give the file to your teacher in a special format called an STL file. Okay, so your teacher will give you a USB stick to put your STL file onto, and then your teacher can then take that into the design space and 3D print that for you. So we do that by choosing File, and then the option that we choose is Export. Okay, so we're not saving it, we're not using the 3D print option, we're using the Export option. Okay, now you can see there we don't want to call it Untitled. I'm just going to call it Pontoon Boat. And the file type is really important. Okay, so by default, it doesn't go to an STL file, which is a bit unfortunate. So you have to just scroll down and find that STL file type. Okay, and then you choose where you want to save it. Okay, so you can save it on your own desktop first and then put it onto the USB stick, or you can just plug the USB stick into your computer and then you can just upload it straight onto that or save it straight onto that. Okay, so I'm just going to save that and then choose export, and then that will export that file as an STL file, which can then be uploaded onto the 3D printing computer and 3D printed for you. So hopefully that helps you along a little bit. If you have any other questions, make sure you let your teacher know and they'll be happy to help. All right, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.